Hi, Casey Wilson here with Sokucoin Labs. This presentation is a demonstration of our flagship product called PQCAT. You could check it out at PQCAT.io. It stands for Post-Quantum Compliance Assessment Tool. So every federal agency now has a legal deadline to find the quantum vulnerable cryptography in its systems and to report it and prove it migrated. This is not theoretical. It's actually happening now. Most of them cannot do the first part. None of them can do the last one, let alone all three. So this is PQCAT, and I'm going to run all of this live, all of its capabilities. We're going to find issues. We're going to report it, price the fix, then fix something and prove the fix actually happened. And along the way, I'm going to try to cheat my own tool and show you why I can't. And that's the part that nobody else has. So what you're looking at here is the command deck. No agents to install, nothing to deploy. I'll point it at GitHub and score it against the NSA's post-quantum standard, CNSA 2.0. And it's reading every TLS endpoint, every cipher, every certificate, every key exchange, and classifying each one against the quantum threat. And 56 cryptographic assets on one host name. Again, 35 of them quantum vulnerable. And this figure is the one that matters commercially. HNDL risk. I'll point that out here. 4.0x. That stands for harvest now and decrypt later. That's an exposure level that is becoming very well known in the industry. And what it means is someone is copying this traffic today and filing it away. They don't have to break it now. They only have to keep it until they can. And the question is, when is that going to happen? So that's GitHub. They do have a lot of sensitive information, code, a lot of code, proprietary, intellectual property. So they're concerned about this, and you can see they're making positive changes. But imagine being a federal agency with 40,000 endpoints. So now we're going to demonstrate our compliance federal reporting sidebar here. Here's the thing that nobody tells you about this market. Everything I just showed you is a scan. A scan is not a report. OMB memo M23-2, section 2 asks for 9 specific data items per system, and only some of them are about cryptography. The rest are about the system itself, its FISMA number, its impact level, whether somebody designated as a high value asset, where it is hosted. So a scanner obviously can't find those. They don't exist in infrastructure. They live in federal systems like EMAS. You might be familiar with that. They live in spreadsheets, people's heads. They're all over the place. CISO says most of the 9 are collected by hand. GSA says no known tool actually captures all 9. That's not a detection problem. That's a major gap, and it's the whole business. So again, the rule says every system must become cryptographically agile, but it doesn't really define what that means. It doesn't really give you a metric. So I wrote one and I published it, and it's called the Cryptographic Agility Index, and you can see it here on the screen. And we have a score, the index, which I'm going to go ahead and run now. And it asks one question per asset. what has to change to move this algorithm, a certificate you reissue, a config you edit, compiled into code you need a release, and that is the case the rule itself calls the opposite of agile, right? So 88 out of 100 here, but if you look underneath, the slowest tier holds 44 assets. That's the number that matters. When an algorithm breaks, you move at the speed of the slowest component, not your average. So, and if you're wondering if I invented something, invented a metric that flatters me, I could certainly do that. But the definition and implementation are both published. And you can compute this by hand off inventory and check out my numbers and check out my scoring yourself. And below the agility index, we have a cool feature called retro report. This enables operators to reconcile against a prior submission. I have to say this is probably one of my favorites because it explains why agencies quietly avoid running a good scanner. And they don't do it on purpose most of the time. It's just the incentives are not there. They already filed a number last year, collected it by hand probably. If they run a real tool and it finds more, the count goes up. And it's a bad look. The CISO has to walk into the room and explain why the program looks like it went backwards. So the incentive to do so is really not there. And this is a systemic issue with the federal agencies, but industry in general. So the safe move is to scope the scan small enough that the number does not really move per se. That is happening right now, and it's definitely happening in the federal government. So this tool aims to help that issue, and we'll go ahead and run a reconcile. We've loaded in prior submission. So you could see that we have 38 assets against last year, but 4 of those carry certificates issued before the submission was filed. Those assets existed. They were missed. So that's not a bigger estate, that's a bigger inventory, or a better inventory. And the tool proves which is which per asset from the certificate's own date. And the 50, it couldn't date, it says so, instead of guessing in the direction that flatters us. So we're searching for truth and accuracy here. Okay, this is another really cool feature. The rule tells agencies to go settle with their cloud provider which cryptography is theirs to migrate and which is the provider's. Nobody can really answer that today. So this proposes a split from what it can observe. And then the part I want you to notice is it leaves 44 of them unassigned on purpose with a blank column for both of the two parties to fill in. And an asset both sides assume the other owns is exactly how a migration gap survives an audit. So this is the money shot. Our M2615 plan builder. Every agency owes a migration plan. So M2615 Appendix B names 9 things it has to contain at a minimum. So we're going to go with Department of Justice for our agency name here. 4 of the 9 are the inventory, and we already have that. The other 5 are what GS14 writes from a blank page at 9 at night in October. It's a crazy system. So this is their system of record, and read the label on the field because it tells you what it bides you. Sections 1, 4, 6, and 8. High value assets, and the records schedule. That second one is where the data retention answers come from, and it is the question nobody can ever answer. Okay, we've got 6 engineers available. That unlocks the schedule section and the effort estimate. And I'm leaving the cost field blank on purpose. Watch what it does with that. So 9 sections, 4 generated, 4 partial, 1 template. They know exactly where to spend the evening or evenings. And every gap collected into the one checklist at the top, 11 items. And every number in here can show its own arithmetic, not a footnote in a manual. It's next to the figure in the report. In the funding section, total effort, 67 engineering weeks. It worked that out of the real inventory asset by asset. And then it stops 67 engineer weeks times in square brackets agency rate. I made the call not to ship default labor rate, and I want to explain it because it looks like a missing feature until it does not. There is no published government-wide fully burdened number. Any default I shipped would be a guessing game. And a fabricated cost basis inside a federal funding request is not a marketing problem. It's an audit finding with the agency's name on it, not mine. Now, it says generated $1,005,000. Their rate, their number on their authority, and the arithmetic is printed right under it, so anyone can check it. It does the math, and they own the judgment. Now let's check out the remediation and migration simulator. This is another cool feature. I'm not claiming favorites because most of these features are just simply amazing. But this is another cool feature. It doesn't just grade you. Every finding rolls up into a playbook with the exact copy-paste config for your platform and the standard cited next to it. And before anyone funds a migration, this is the planning engine. Phases, a week-by-week timeline, engineering effort, peak concurrent headcount, a projected score curve. Those are the numbers that go into a budget request. Right now, those get estimated by a contractor in a spreadsheet. Finding things is half the job. Auditors don't take we fix it on faith. They're right not to, right? So here are 2 assessments of the same server. One of them is 33 out of 100 before the work, and then 78 after. Okay, and so we're going to compare these 2. And it lays out every asset that appears in both. This one was classical key exchange, red, and it is now hybrid post-quantum green. And then if you look at this row, it says not provable and tells you why. The algorithm never changed. I made it explain rather than just hide the row because the rule is actually the product. It will only certify a fix that actually happened. So we're putting in a tracker ID, and then now I'm going to bind those 2 assessments into one signed transaction. Same asset vulnerable before, compliant after. And the finding closes when the transaction verifies, and if the fix didn't happen. This cannot be built at all. There's no button for trust me. And here is the other side of it. Whoever receives the file needs nothing from me to check it. No account, no network, no key. Genuine 1. Closure permitted. And then now here's the same file with one field edited. And I changed the tracker number, nothing else. It's refused and the finding stays open. Same check runs at the command line, which is what an external auditor typically uses on their own machine. So it's the same answer either way. Let's dive into the confidential compliance engine evidence features. Here's the 9 on a thin registry. 4 of 9. Now some of these 9, no system of record holds. Nobody has a database rule for them. So what does an honest tool do with those? That's the question. Item 9 now reads asserted, not discovered, not imported. A named person in a named role on a date. And it will not let me do that anonymously. Leave the name off, and it refuses to record it at all because an asserted cell is worth nothing if it does not carry who stood behind it. Now their real system of record, their HVA list, their high value asset list, their record schedule, that's going to give us 9 of 9. And watch what happened to my assertion. It is gone. Their EMAS had a value, so the import 1, and the row stays, it changes to imported. And I left my text in the box, and the tool overruled me. A system of record outranks a typed in one every single time. Or the word imported would be a lie. So, and this column is the whole company. Every single cell says how it got its value. Row 4, a machine found. Everything else came out of their EMAS export, and just watched a third kind asserted and watched it get overruled. And this is this is why it matters. Recorded the digest of the exact file and pinned it into every imported cell. An auditor holding the same export can confirm the cell came from it. They don't trust me, they check it. Anyone can hand you a 9-column spreadsheet by typing the missing 6 columns. That is an opinion formatted as a table, and nothing in it tells you which cells somebody made up. This tells you for every cell, and it can't be relabeled afterwards. I'll prove that in about 3 minutes. Okay, now to our bind and seal and harvest clock mechanism. Everything so far is a report, and a report is something you have to trust. This is one portable file, the raw findings, the verdict computed from them, the full 9-column reporting row, and a single post-quantum signature over all of it. One signature covering both the inventory and the reporting table, which means I can't swap the table for a friendlier one without breaking the whole thing. So hold that thought. And the harvest clock, because a board understands this one. That is how many asset years of traffic are already collectible and become readable on the day the machine exists. This is not a slogan, it's literally a measurement, and it labels which start dates it had to assume. Okay, I mentioned before that I wanted to try to cheat the system in front of you. Well, the moment has arrived. So what you're looking at here is not our dashboard. You shouldn't have to trust our dashboard. So I want you to watch me hand a file to something completely separate. This page. It runs entirely in the browser, offline. Nothing uploaded, no account, no server. And we're going to go ahead and drag over a file that came from the dashboard. That was a sealed run from GitHub. And right now it's verifying the coin that we dropped in there, and it's verified. So it rederives the whole verdict from the raw findings and checks it against the seal. And you can see it's green, 37.5, 56 findings, genuine, even though the target is failing. And this is the line where the seal key is recognized. And you can see it's from Soku Coin Labs. It knows our published key, so it tells you not just that the evidence is intact, but who sealed it. Okay, now we're going to have some fun with this. I'm going to be a little bit dishonest here, pretend that I'm a dishonest vendor for a second. So let me pop up a terminal window. And what I'm going to try to do here is do a simple forgery of the sealed data and forge the score to a 92 instead of 37.5. Okay, so it says that the score was written to 92, rewritten to 92. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and drag that file, forged PQ coin, over to run another verification. So there it is, and I'm dropping it into the verification challenge. Here we go. So as you can see, that didn't work. So it's refused, and there's no reference copy, no database, no network. It caught the life from the forged file alone, and that's because the evidence is inside, that is committed inside to the real findings, and 92 does not open that commitment. And it doesn't warn, it fails closed, and it says exactly where. That's not a diff, that's let me show you what it actually did. Let's take a look at the engine room, which shows all the hard work behind the magic. So I'm going to drag the same forged coin over so that we could watch the processes in the verification process. There you go. So forgery refused. So what you just saw there is all 56 findings stream in and get hashed. They fold 56, 28, 14 down to one fingerprint, rebuild it from scratch out of the raw evidence in the file. And then the comparison, the fingerprint sealed in the file against the one my forgery rederives to, and it diverges right there. And the first red character is what sets it off. That red is the exact place the lie starts and the seal comes down broken. So now I'm going to drag the real coin in. You can see that. Oops. Green all across the board. So that's the real one. Every finding, every fold, every character aligned, and the post-quantum seal strikes. Green. That's the difference between a report and evidence. Okay, so we're on the same evidence screen here. I'm going to pop up a terminal window. That's nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. And right now we're going to run through a quick scenario. Let's imagine that we're in an auditor's chair with no vendor in the loop. And they have one terminal window, and here's why it matters commercially. So I'm going to run a legit sealed evidence coin. And this is a signed binary an auditor runs on their own machine. Let's imagine it's air-gapped in a SCIF if they want. Most likely if they're working on a classified program, they're going to be in a SCIF in an air-gapped environment anyway. The only thing that they need from us is public, our key published on that page. That is the difference between a product a classified program can buy and one it can't. No call home, no license server, no telemetry, nothing to accredit. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and watch it refuse 2 harder forgeries, okay? This one was edited, it was minted from scratch off doctored findings with the forger's own key. Look at stage 3, perfectly self-consistent. Those fake findings really honestly produce the 100 it claims, but it's refused anyway. Wrong identity. Let's try another one. This one is real findings with a better score written on top, signed with our own genuine key. It's refused at stage 3. The seal is fine, but it recomputes the grade and it doesn't get the number claimed. That's a compliance tool that will not endorse its own vendor's arithmetic. I honestly do not know of another tool that does that. Everything so far lived in networks and files. This is a real computer. I can hold it in my hand, literally right here. This is a Raspberry Pi. And the deepest cryptography on it is boot firmware. Below the operating system where almost nobody scans. PQCAT carved this board and this board's boot EEPROM and found the keys baked into it. RSA 2048 and ESDSA P256 at a known byte offset in the chip that decides what this thing is allowed to boot. Both quantum vulnerable. So in the terminal here, I'm going to run this command. This is our quantum X-ray feature. So read that. The attestation carries 0 firmware bytes. 578 of them in total against the 2 megabyte chip. So it is not checking my copy of anything. Stage 2 rereads the bytes off the device, and stage 3 rederives the leaf against the committed root byte for byte. Now we're going to run the command as a tampered silicon. So I flipped one bit, 1 out of 16.8 million on this board, and it says it right there. 1 change bit is enough to refuse the verdict. Network code, cloud, and silicon. Same evidence model all the way down the rabbit hole. And one more for the road since we're on the terminal screen. I'm going to go ahead and show you a real quick demonstration of our confidential mode scans. So right now, this is one more for anyone who owns a security boundary. So you could see our scan, confidential mode scans with every asset identified, salted, and hashed at scan time. The math still works, the score still approves, and the inventory never exists in the clear at all. So the artifact you hand an auditor can't leak any target list, even if it's mishandled. So that's the loop. Find it, report it, price the fix, prove the fix. And every claim along the way is something the customer can recheck without trusting the vendor. So shipping today, 3 editions, runs air-gapped. That's a critical feature there that not very many can offer. I built this because I kept watching agencies get told to report something nobody had built a way to report fully. The hard part was never the scanning, it was everything after it. What it doesn't have yet is a route to the agencies that need it the most. And that's a distribution gap, not a product gap. We have some incredible capabilities that we plan to develop on top of what we already have, and that's on our roadmap, and it's included, and it's going to be incredible. It's already, I claim, to be one of the most advanced post-quantum migration tools on the market, and it's just going to get better from here. Everything's at PQCAT.io, and the verify page is open to anyone who wants to try to learn more or try to break something. I welcome it. If this is close to something you're working on, I'd really love to hear from you. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time. Look forward to the next one. Thanks.